So the FIFO event that we're hosting, the structure of it is that first of all we will discuss the results in some greater detail. Thus far we've really only given a tiny slither of the huge amount of information that we've got from the report. So the first thing is that we're going to unpack some of those findings. And then there's going to be a panel discussion, and really the goal of the panel discussion is to start moving forward around what is it that we can do. So the different panel participants will put forward their views, and some of the participants will talk about what they're already doing. So the second half of the session will be interacting with a panel. And on the panel we have Michael O'Hanlon, who's from Beyond Blue. We also have Glenn McLaren from the Australian Manufacturers Workers Union. And we have Tony Wittcomb, who's the Head of Health and Safety at Roy Hill. And I'll also be there. So you can see we have a diverse panel who can share their views and thoughts on how we should move forward, as well as give some practical examples of good practice. So what can you expect at the session? First of all, it's a great opportunity to find out directly from the authors of the report what the research shows. And of course, having completed a survey with more than 3,000 FIFO workers, surveys of FIFO partners, a literature review, a longitudinal study where we track people over shifts and over the course of the FIFO experience, plus interviews and more. There's an enormous amount of information and insights in the research, and so you can be sure that we're going to unpack some of those key findings. I think it's really important that we move forward, and many people are in the industry and in other organisations, but it's just as important to move forward in an evidence-based way. And what we have is the evidence now. We have some fantastic guidance for moving forward. The breakfast provides this opportunity to think strategically about how to address some of the challenges and move forward knowing that the things that will be acted upon are the most important things. One of the things that we will do at the workshop is look at what we can do next. And by we, I mean what we in the Centre for Transformative Work Design can do to help in the journey, but also we really want to understand what's important for the other stakeholders and how we can support each of you. I think one of the advantages of the workshop is that we will present a framework for thinking about how to move forward. So we will draw on something that we call the Thrive at Work framework. And what this does is it sort of packages all the ways forward into a sort of coherent and organised way of thinking about it. I think that's helpful because we are bringing broader evidence and thinking around mental health in the workplace into that framework. And we think that it will help organisations to recognise the many different ways that it's possible to improve the lives of FIFO workers, but to have a sort of strategic lens to think about all the different ways and how they might fit together. At the workshop, there'll be opportunity to hear from what some other organisations are already doing. So you will hear that from our panel members. But of course, also you'll have the opportunity to talk to people on your table about some of the things that you're doing and some of the things that they're doing. So we hope that this workshop helps to build a community of stakeholders who are passionate about improving the lives of FIFO workers. We really hope that you'll come along to the breakfast. As much as anything, we would like to involve as many people as we can in this critical conversation about how to go ahead and make a difference to FIFO workers' lives. There's been a lot of research, there's been a lot of reflection and a lot of thinking about the topic, and certainly we know that many organisations are acting and going forward, but we think there's a lot to be gained from people coming together and sharing what it is that they're doing, what it is that they're interested in, what it is that they need more support around. So one of the things that we will do at the breakfast is ask you what sorts of support would be helpful to you. And finding that out from you enables us to think about what we can then help to support in terms of moving forward. And there are many other people who can help provide services beyond us. But we are really keen to understand what it is that you're looking for as a stakeholder in this area to make a difference to FIFO working lives. So one of the findings from the research that you're probably familiar with was that about 33% or 1/3 of FIFO workers are suffering from psychological distress, and that's way more than norms or benchmarks. But we also need to go beyond that and understand why and who. So who's particularly being affected by FIFO workers? And that's really what the breakfast is about. So to go beneath that headline finding and delve more deeply into understanding what is it that shapes FIFO workers' mental health. And then of course extrapolating from that evidence to think about the best strategies. It's definitely not our agenda to say that FIFO work should stop. It doesn't make sense. Economically, it's likely to be critical for Western Australia for some time to come. And what our research shows is that it's really saying, well, what is it that we can do practically to minimise some of the risks that are inherent in FIFO work and also maximise some of the positives.